So, dear students, dear viewers, you are welcome back. We are continuing with our presentation on academic writing, and I'm still your facilitator, Dr. Mark Kahwa, here at Mountains of the Moon University in the Faculty of Education. So we're now just going to look at the types of publications. So when we are talking about this academic writing, one of the outputs that you need to have something that you send to a journal, and then that manuscript is accepted for publication. So therefore we need to know what are the different types of academic publications. So we begin with the academic journals. And we are saying this is a periodical that contains articles written by experts in different fields of study. It can be in the field of education, it can be in the field of health, it can be in the field of agriculture, it can be in any field. So those experts, once they write, now all those articles are brought together in a periodical. So that's what we call the academic journal. So academic journals is one of the academic publications that we are talking about in this lecture, in this presentation. Now we have academic conference proceedings. So I have talked about experts in different fields. So normally experts in different fields are invited to make presentations at a conference. The conference can be national, it can be international conference. So when those experts are invited, normally sometimes they begin by submitting abstracts, and when abstracts are found worthy, they are accepted. Then the authors are asked to continue writing the full papers. Now, full papers, once they are completed, they are submitted to the conference. So those different experts converge and they present those papers on different aspects, by the way. If, for example, it is a conference on education, still under education, there are different aspects, different sub-themes that the presenters can handle. If, for example, it is in education, it can be maybe vocational education, it can be maybe higher education, it can be maybe primary education, it can be secondary education. But even then, under those themes, there are other sub-themes. If, for example, it is higher education, what are you looking at? Are you presenting, for example, a paper on e-learning? Are you presenting a paper, for example, on teaching? Are you presenting a paper, for example, on teaching and assessment? So now, once those papers are presented, they are normally subjected to peer review, and all those papers that are found of quality, the desired quality by the conference organizers, then they are published. So a collection of those publications of papers presented at a conference is what we call the academic conference proceedings. Then we have the monographs. Normally, as the word suggests, mono means one. So that is a detailed study, a detailed write-up on a specialized field, on a single specialized field. So the author writes and goes deep to write about a field and write about it exhaustively. So that is what we call the monograph. So all those are also types of publications. Then we have textbooks. Textbooks is not something new, where we have passed in primary schools, in secondary schools. Normally textbooks are written on different subjects. It can be maybe on history, on mathematics, on English, on geography. So normally textbooks are kind of like a summary of different subjects. Normally not so much detailed, but they are also very helpful, and they are categorized under types of publications. Then we have chapters in books. So what happens with the chapters in books, different experts can contribute to a theme. For example, a theme a theme can be like on digital education. Now, under digital education, different authors can rate different papers. Now, those different papers are peer reviewed, and those that are found authentic, that are found worthy of publication, are brought together, and then a book chapter is published. So there a contribution is made by different authors. Then we have the white paper, and for example, here a very good example I can give is the government white paper. And normally white papers examine an issue or an aspect that is studied in depth, and normally for improvement. For example, it can be a white paper on education, and a detailed study can be done on how education at different levels can be improved. It can be on health, it can be on agriculture, and normally white papers are also types of publications. Then we have a manual. Manual, this is also not something strange, because normally when we buy products, we find instructions on how to use those products. It can be a phone. If, for example, you have bought a phone, it can be a laptop. It can be a projector, like this projector that we are using. So it will normally have instructions on how you are supposed to use that item. So that is what we call the manual. So manuals are also published. We have a standard, and here a standard we mean a measure. A standard can be an acceptable measure of anything. You can mention of anything. So standards are like prescribed rules, prescribed procedures on how certain things must be run. So it can be a standard of how to, for example, it can be a standard on how, for example, to use a medication. It can be a standard of how to follow a certain aspect. So, for example, recently when we had COVID-19, we had the standard operating procedures. So, kind of standards prescribe, or they show what people are expected to do in certain times. Then we have, those are the different types of publication. Those are the main types of publications: the academic journals, the academic conference proceedings, the monographs, the textbooks, chapters in books, white paper, manual, and standard. So now we want to proceed to what we call the publication process. Since we are talking about publication, then we need to know where does one start and how does one progress from the initial stages up to the last stage, which is the publication. So normally the starting point is the identification of the problem, what we call the perception and identification of the research problem. Normally that is the starting point. If you want to write a manuscript for publication, you cannot just start from zero. You have to start by identifying a problem. Once you have identified a problem and you have narrowed it down to its specific and very specific terms, then you start preparing the concept, or what we call the full proposal. Now, once you have that, then you are ready to start collecting the data, making an analysis, interpreting, and then starting to write a draft report. Then when you have done that, you have to identify where to publish and consider the guidelines. So normally different authors, by the way, have different ways of approaches, or different approaches, because some will begin by writing. Once they have written, now they will identify a journal where to publish. But some begin by identifying a journal. You already have a theme, you have a problem, then you identify, based on that you identify a journal where to publish. And for me, that is what normally I prefer. You first identify a journal, so that right from the start, then you are following the author's guidelines that are prescribed in a journal. Other than to begin by writing, then after you have written, then you identify a journal, then you'll have to go back and you'll have to write the whole manuscript. Then there is manuscript preparation. Once you have identified the journal, then you start preparing the manuscript. Based on you prepare the manuscript based on the author's guidelines. Then there is submission of the manuscript to the editor. Once you submit the manuscript, then the editor will send the manuscript to the different reviewers. So once the manuscript is sent to the different reviewers, then you will receive a response. And the response can be in different ways. Either your manuscript is accepted as is, or it is accepted with minor corrections, or it is accepted with major corrections, or it is rejected. Now, based on the response you get, then you will review. You will review the paper. Now, once you review the paper, then you will have to resubmit, and the reviewers will have to look at your response. If you have addressed all the identified comments, and once it is okay, then your paper will go to the final stage of publication. So normally the publication process will take all those different steps. So we have now looked at the different types of publication and the publication process. So I suggest that we now go for a break. So we shall pick on from there when we come back. Thank you.